Today I want to show you the game between two former world champions Garry Kasparov and Vladimir KRAMNIK. Both players are considered among the best ever, and this game was played when both were still on top of their games. Kasparov starts the game with the move e4, and we have Sicilian defense on the board. Knight c3, already in the second move, Kasparov makes an unusual choice because this move is not played a lot. Knight c6 developing the knight, knight e2, but after knight f6, d4, exchange of the pawns on d4, knight takes d4, and e5, the game actually transposed into a more popular Sveshnikov variation of Sicilian defense. The white knight is under attack, it goes to b5 and wants to jump into a square d6 with a check. Black prevents it with the move d6. Bishop goes to g5, pinning the black knight to the queen, and after a6, the knight goes to a3. It goes to the edge of the board temporarily, and then it will get into the game either through c2 and e3 squares or through c4 square. b5, b4 is a threat, forking two knights, so the next move is knight d5 is very logical, putting more pressure on the pinned knight on f6. Bishop e7, this is all theory. Bishop takes f6. This is the move that has to be made in this position. Knight takes f6 in this particular case considered a worse variation. I played this position myself a lot for white, and I know actually a lot of lines here. So bishop takes f6 is a must move in this particular opening. Bishop takes f6 and c3. As we were discussing, the knight wants to go through c2 to e3 to more active squares. Black castle short side, knight goes to c2, and bishop and rook goes to b8, preparing potentially to go b4. Not immediately, but potentially. But white, Kasparov immediately starts attack on the king side of the board with the move h4. You cannot take the pawn on h4 because there is queen h5 attacking the bishop, and if bishop goes away, there is a checkmate on h7. So cannot take the pawn on h4. Knight e7. The knight on d5 is too strong to keep it there, so black wants to exchange it even at the expense of their bishop, which is not that great, by the way. So knight takes f6, g takes f6. The king now is open. That's a negative in black's position. But at least white don't have a monster knight on d5 anymore. Kasparov plays queen d2, preparing long side castle. Bishop b7, developing the bishop and attacking the pawn on e4. Kasparov makes a move bishop d3, developing the bishop as well and protecting the pawn on e4, and black plays d5. Very usual break in the center in Sicilian defense. The move d5 looks very logical, and after e takes d5, queen takes d5, KRAMNIK's position looks very promising. His weakness is still the king on g8, it's open. But the queen is great in square d5, bishop is active, knight can get into the game very soon, so black's position is absolutely fine. Kasparov castles long, e4 attacking white bishop, and the bishop goes away to e2. KRAMNIK takes the pawn on a2. The good news for white, that the knight from c2 controls the square a1, and that's why there is no checkmate and no real threats to the white king. That's why Kasparov can actually start his own attack with the move queen h6, attacking the pawn on f6. KRAMNIK sees it and moves the queen away to a square e6, protecting the pawn on f6, and Kasparov goes knight d4, very logical. Knight goes to the active square, attacking the queen. Queen has to go away and make sure that it still supports the pawn on f6. After queen b6, Kasparov plays rook g3, which the idea is to leave the rook to a square g3 and basically checkmate the black king. Therefore, black has to move away. The king goes to h8, and bishop goes to g4 with some ideas of putting the bishop on f5 and checkmating on h7. KRAMNIK immediately goes rook g8 to make sure that the rook can go potentially to g7 to protect the vulnerable point on h7. And Kasparov plays knight e6, sacrificing the knight on a square e6. Now, if black takes the knight, queen takes f6, check, rook g7, rook d7. The knight cannot move because there is a checkmate on g7. And after rook e8, rook g3, white is not winning immediately, but according to the engines, computer gives white here a +8. So this position is winning for white. KRAMNIK understands that, therefore he doesn't take the knight and plays the best move in this position, a rook g6. As I mentioned in the beginning, both players are on top of their game at this point of their careers. Right now, to the young generation, KRAMNIK is mostly known for his anti-cheating campaign, but not so long time ago, he was one of the best players in the world champion, and one of the best in chess theory. So rook g6, queen has to go away, and it goes away to f4, attacking the rook on b8. And here, KRAMNIK had to find the move bishop d5 to protect the rook with the queen, activate the bishop, attack the knight, and in this position, black would have been considerably better. He didn't find this move, and instead played a rook e8. White immediately goes aggressively on the square d6 with the rook, attacking the queen. KRAMNIK finds a very nice move, knight d5, counter-attacking the white queen on f4. And here comes brilliancy from Garry Kasparov. He doesn't care about the queen. He plays h5. Great move. h5, and basically he calculated the whole variation going forward. KRAMNIK takes the queen, which is actually the best move in this position. Knight takes f4. Kasparov takes the rook, and now look at this position. Pretty much every single piece of white is under attack. The rook is under attack, the knight is under attack, the rook is under attack. So everything is under attack, but it doesn't matter because, most importantly, the dynamic of the position is favoring white. So black takes the rook. Queen takes d6. Rook h7 check. King goes to g8. G takes f7 check. Forking the king and the rook. The knight is covering the square f8. King takes the rook on h7. We have another queen on the board on square e8. Exchange. Actually, that's an important moment. KRAMNIK took on e6, and here, if Kasparov just takes on e6 with the bishop, this is still much better for white, but to win this position would be an issue. There would be a long game ahead. So there is an important check on f5 that Kasparov saw ahead of time, I'm sure. King goes to g7, queen g6 check, king f8, queen takes f6 check, king e8, and only now bishop takes e6 in this particular order. Now KRAMNIK wants to exchange the queens and goes queen f8, and immediately loses to a move that's called a deflection in chess. Kasparov actually didn't manage to make this move because KRAMNIK actually resigned after his own move queen f8, understanding that this position is lost, after the move bishop d7 check. And the only move for black would be to take that bishop, and then queen takes f8, and Kasparov would have an extra queen. Great game by Kasparov. Nice sacrifices. Thank you for watching.